meditating and whatnot.
We had a different unique experience. We went to Stonehenge. This has nothing to do with Stonehenge. We showed up, my wife and my son, and at Stonehenge was his date from the prom. Can you believe that?
Say that again, Rob.
We went to Stonehenge and we got there, and one of the people touring Stonehenge the same day was my son's date from the prom in high school. This is a couple years after high school.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
There's your small world story.
Boy, that's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they didn't end up getting married?
Oh no, they were
No.
actually they both went to college in Boston, so they were close to each other up there, and they stayed in contact. They were friends, but you know, I guess apparently not close. And he was in England for a semester. That's why we went over, because he was over for the semester. We went over and spent 10 days and toured all around. And we happened to go to Stonehenge the same day she did. So,
How about that?
Wow.
All right, guys. Well, it's just about 10 after. I guess we could go ahead and get kind of started. We got 15 people on the night. Nice. I don't know if Annie's going to join us later or not. Is she working? Do you know, Margie?
She's working.
Is
She
she?
won't join us.
Okay. I really don't have much as far as just to tell you anything other than if you haven't got titles into Annie, do that as soon as possible, like yesterday, for the thing, for the show that's coming up. I know we already passed the deadline, but I'm sure she'll accept another title or two if anyone wants to participate in that show.
Brian, have you had any feedback of just generally how many titles have been received so far?
Annie went through and she had a list of about 8 or 10 members that are participating. I don't know as far as how many titles per person, but enough for a show would be my assumption from that. She didn't give us an exact number. I don't know if Margie, if you heard anything of an exact number from her or anything like that.
No, I didn't ask, but she did tell me that she would take late entries.
She mentioned a number on Sunday, and I want to say it was in the 40s.
The last time I heard, I thought it was in the 40s also.
Okay.
And she did mention, by the way, that she was waiting for titles from you, Brian.
Yeah, I know. I'm making her wait on purpose.
Oh, okay.
It's payback because every show we've had since I've known her, I've waited for her titles to the last minute.
Okay.
So
All
now
right.
that she's in charge, I'm making her wait. That's all.
Siblings in a former life.
Yes. Guess I can turn my video on. Yeah, I owe her several of those. So
Delayed disobedience.
Yep. All right. So other than that, I don't think I have much as far as business wise or anything like that to speak about. Marty, did you get my email today with the information that you had requested? She's shaking her.
I got it. So.
Yes, I did.
Is that a better format than before?
Yes.
I did not open it, but
Oh, sure. Okay. I see how that is.
I saw it.
You said it's a better format, so okay.
I will look. Hold on. I'll look right now.
Okay.
I didn't have a nurse today, and I was doing everything myself. So it was pretty hectic here.
Your little one keeps popping in and out next to your shoulder there.
That'll work.
That'll work. That's better, isn't it?
Well, we can read it.
I can say, I bet you can understand that one.
That's the old way we used to do it.
Yes, it is. So those of you that are going, what are they talking about? It's the Treasury report.
Yeah.
Okay. So other than that, what do we have on the agenda for this evening, guys?
Well, we
And
have,
I've got a couple of items.
and I have some.
Well, that's good. and we're gonna discuss a little bit about exporting your photos out of. I got Lightroom and Photoshop open, so we'll take a look at both of them, and I'll show you how I do it. Not necessarily the right way, but it's the way I do it. So, all right. So who wants to start?
Well, Brian, before we get started, I had a couple of non-agenda items, if you will.
Fine.
First, and this wasn't on my list, but I can't help but notice we should welcome back Melissa for the Zoom call.
I saw Melissa. Hello, darling.
Hi,
Hi, Melissa.
Welcome
Hi, Melissa.
back.
Hi, thank you. Sorry, it's been a rough couple months here.
Okay, I do have to stop. I have to stop everyone, and I have to ask Melissa, what was in the box?
It's in the tea.
Is that what was in it? I've been watching the box, and I never got to see the opening of the box.
The video's up. You can
Is
watch
it?
the
Okay,
video.
I'll have to watch it.
Yeah. I was having fun with that.
I know I've been following the box, and it's been all over the place, but I didn't get to see it open, so I didn't know what was in it. So
It even got arrested.
I think I did see that. Yes, I did see that one.
Inform us what y'all are talking about.
Oh, I have to friend you on Facebook.
You what?
It's a thing on Facebook. Melissa got a delivery, and it said not to open until the 22nd. So it's been a week, I think, or more.
Yeah, it was a week. I think it
At the
started
house,
on
and
Monday.
she took pictures of it in different places, and it had eyeballs on it, and it got arrested and was
It
in
was
trouble.
partying hard,
Yeah.
drinking. It was doing all sorts, stuck in the bathroom. I found it in the bathroom. I mean, it was all over the place.
So
Oh
it
my
was
goodness.
interesting to follow on Facebook and see the pictures being posted. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
Okay, so 2 items. I got a letter in the mail the other day from the Latrobe Arts Center. During the month of May, they're having an open show that's available for non-members. The drop-off date corresponds to the second of our 2 pickup dates. So if any of you are interested, if you go to the Latrobe Arts Center webpage, you'll find registration information there. It will cost you $40 for, it's a maximum of 3 prints, cost you $40.
Last time.
What's that, Marty?
I was talking to Grace, sorry.
Oh, okay. So if you're interested, you're gonna obviously have, well, a lot of you will have prints at the Arts Center for our show. So if you're interested in spending a little bit of money, you can either keep those there for the next month, or for that matter, you can put in a different 3 if you're interested. I would caution you to read their prospectus information carefully. They do have some requirements regarding what you can submit and what you need on the back of the print to drop it off and that type of thing. So just read the instructions carefully.
Can you send me that information, Jim?
I dropped the I
have a-
dropped the link in the chat right now.
Okay, thank
Oh,
you.
okay, thanks, Brian. Second item is West Overton Village contacted me, Jessica, and I forget her last name now.
Barclay,
Say it again?
Barclay?
I don't think so. She's got a hyphenated last name. It's fairly long.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
yeah.
So they are interested in inviting us to cover some of their events this summer. They probably have a half a dozen different events beginning in May and going all the way through in December and Christmas. And I think we had talked about this sometime a year or so ago. We'd like to try to establish kind of a working relationship with them. We do have a photo walk scheduled there in April that Beth's going to be making arrangements for. So at some point here, I don't know, within the next month or so, I'll put out an email that gives some additional information on it. But basically what we'd like you to do is, if you can, would be to invite to attend one of their events and just take some photographs for them. And they use them for marketing purposes. So that's it. Thanks, Brian.
Absolutely.
Melissa raised her finger. Oh, I thought you had a question.
I don't really have a question, but I do have other news to go with your photo, and you guys may know about them already. The photo exhibits. The Westmoreland Arts and Heritage Festival. The last day to submit for that, I think, is March 5th.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And I know I am really delayed, but Women in Art again for down at You Are Here. The last day to submit for that, I can't remember if it's March 3rd or 5th. I want to say it's the 5th.
It's the 5th.
Think it is.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for the updates on those. Anybody else got anything I want to bring up?
Well, I know that we have tips tonight. And of course, Annie made sure she worked, so she wouldn't have to do her tips tonight.
She'll probably want to do them on a Wednesday night.
So I went ahead and I've got a little bit I can do
Okay.
whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, we got our normal news, I'm assuming. Jim, you got news for us?
Yeah, Margie can go first.
Oh, it don't matter who goes first. Go, Jim. Mine's going to take at least 10 minutes long. I'm just going to be showing some pictures, give you all an idea. Some of my favorite photographers.
Go ahead.
Whoever's ready, let's go.
All right, I'm going.
All right. Margie's going.
All right, let's see if I can. I'm going to bring it to y'all's attention that if we are very patient, we're going to be able to get some good animal pictures, such as what Melissa did. She sat there and sat there and sat there until she got that perfect picture. So this will give you some more ideas on some of the pictures you can take in squirrels. I mean, all kinds of wonderful squirrel pictures if you just sit there, be patient, and watch them.
I really look at that and think he's directing traffic.
I know it.
There's
Either that
squirrels
or
running all over the place, and he's trying to calm them down and get them all going the right direction.
This is great. He's really telling people to remember to stop for buses.
I know where that's taken.
That's, oh my gosh, another day like today.
That's how I felt all day today.
Yeah. Love this one.
I've seen that one before. I like that.
Yeah. You know, while you're traveling, take a look. You might find some of this going on.
Oh, he's just
Look
about
at
to
the
get slapped.
face. Yeah, it really, look at that face. You got it coming, baby. Love this.
Oh,
I know. A smiling shark.
I won't be
Just
seeing
before he
that.
bites your head off.
Yeah.
This, you know, of course, these are waving at you, the polar bears.
Yeah, come on over here. Let me hug you.
I love this. Yeah, kung fu. Taking better pictures than me. But using an icon. I love this. It's not only beautiful, but he's shading his eyes from the sun. Somebody's biting somebody's butt. That's the way I feel a lot of days. The other pictures, but it's just giving you an idea of get out there and really look at these animals. Now, I am, so many of us have dogs. So we can really, here's one for Dennis. We can really experiment with taking pictures of our dogs. This is one of my favorite. I'm going through these real fast. They're not my favorite. The guy himself is, but when it comes to individual pups, I don't find him one of my favorites. That's the reason I'm going so fast. But they have a lot of black and white, showing you can do some nice black and whites with pups. I like this backlighting. This is my favorite. He didn't do as well.
I think his underwater pictures are better.
I'm going to show him the underwater pictures.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I wanted to just give an idea of the on land ones. And the pounce, let me do the pounce. A lot of us have got kittens. So, our cats, just giving you an idea. And what I thought of with the cats, if I had a young cat again, instead of my 17-year-old, you know, you all had that little fishing pole with a little toy on the underneath, on the end of it, I mean, that would really do some great pictures of them jumping for it, is what I'm trying to say. Especially if you can get them outside and you got that blue sky. We're going to go to the favorite, which of course is the reason I like them so much, is the underwater ones. You got a swimming pool. These are great. Makes me want to get a swimming pool just for this kind of photography.
We have a pool, but we have 2 dogs that refuse to go near it. And one of them's a lab.
Wow. Oh, I would have so much fun working with them.
Oh,
I know, I love that one. This is a great one. It's giving you ideas of what you can do for some great photos. You need to teach your puppy dogs to go in the pool.
mm. One of them's too old to get to the pool at this point, but
The other one you can pick up and throw in, or have somebody pick them up and throw them in, that you'll get some good pictures there.
That equipment is probably expensive.
you can get cheap underwater stuff just for like the first couple of feet down at least. That's not too bad.
Yeah,
Just to try it out.
and this one's not even in the pool. It actually looks like a kiddie pool when you look at it. So this is the dog looking over the kiddie pool after a ball. If you got a dog that retrieves balls, boy, it's not easy. I tried that yesterday when mine were splashing through these puddles, these huge puddles. And I throw the ball up into the puddles and they would run for it. And I'm trying to focus and take pictures of them. And oh man, that was not easy. I needed 2 people. Look at that. There's only one more photographer I wanted to show you. It's just to give you some ideas. He does a lot of nature type photography with his dogs. I love the way they're lit, backlit.
I'm looking at these pictures and I'm thinking, God, are those dogs well trained?
Oh, just make them sit. Teach them to sit on a lot of these.
Yeah, but they don't stay. That's the key.
Well, you need to teach them to stay. I have one that will stay and do whatever I want her to do. And that is the black one, which is Trixie. Then I have my problem child.
We all have one.
Yes, which is Sky. And I actually got some pictures of her yesterday, but every time she looks at me, it's like, go to you know where. Get that camera out of my face. And she's harder to focus because she's white and red. And you get that next to a black dog like Trixie, you have to focus on her and she doesn't want to stand still to be focused on, where Trixie will.
Yeah.
Otherwise you blow out. If you focus on the dark one, you're going to blow out the other one. Sky.
Lay down. Lay down.
Yeah, all of these are not, isn't this wonderful?
Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah. If you've got a cat, you can get that mirror, you know, with the black underneath, you know, and go ahead and just like we do with a lot of our accessories, I guess you can say. But get the cat there to look at it. Even better if you've got a little bit of food on there, you might be able to let her lick it off and get the tongue involved in it.
Errol just wants to be in this.
I love that.
He thinks he's a model. Lay down.
Well, take him outside and let him be a model.
Oh.
This one I love. Reflections. Key to it is, you know, having the nature around you, the flowers and etc. Really pretty.
Some of those photos, a lot of them are, you know, sit, stay, but some of them are not staged. They're the dog's personality.
Yeah. Yep. Like that one there.
Yeah.
Yeah, sniffing. And that's it. But what I was getting at is you've got dogs, you got cats, hamsters, it doesn't matter, fish, whatever pets that you may have, be patient and see if you can catch them in those odd moments, especially cats that go through the bags and they're always into something. Have somebody play with one of the toys while you're taking pictures of them, or go outside in nature. And you've got turkeys, you've got squirrels, you've got all kinds of wildlife within the area, birds, and catch them. You know, a robin pulling up a worm. But if you're patient, like what Melissa was, you're going to get a very unique type of photo. And that's what I was trying to get at. Okay, I am going to get out of here, stop sharing. And it's to you, Jim. That was my tip, by the way.
I tell you that Margie's becoming a Zoom expert now.
Yeah, I know. I could get out without Brian.
Thanks, Margie.
Anytime, Jim.
Yes, thank you, Margie.
So you're going to make me look bad here. I got to figure out how to share again.
Down at the bottom where it says share.
Thank you.
I was just being ugly.
Don't forget, if you're showing videos, make sure you share your audio as well.
Oh, thank you, because there is going to be one. And Brett, you know what I do forget? Do I want to share my screen? Or is it not the screen?
The whole desktop or just the app that you're using?
Well, I'm going to be switching between
So you want to share the screen itself.
the screen. Okay.
Yeah, that way anything that's on the screen will be visible.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
So you see Samsung?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, good. So I've got about 6 or 7 of these tonight. For some reason, going through Petapixel this month, there just weren't a whole lot of the articles that captured my attention. So these are the ones that did. So Annie's not on the phone, but this article is about Samsung sensor technology. And I believe this particular technology might be on the new 21, I think it's 21.
Yeah.
Annie's got on order. But this one caught my eye because apparently it has the capability of capturing on one shot, if you will. The sensor in the associated technology can divvy up the scene for both high and low ISO simultaneously. So in effect, it's kind of like a in-camera HDR composite with a high and a low ISO exposure. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and maybe someday Annie can kind of demonstrate that for us. I don't know if any of the Apple phones do that type of adjustment or not.
Not at this point that I'm aware of.
Okay. And this is for Android users. This is the first I've heard of it, and I don't think it's actually being used yet, but this AVIF is a new format that Google has developed for photo images and video, I guess. And supposedly one of its strong attributes is that the file format, I hate to say it's equivalent to JPEG. It's not a RAW file, but it gives you a higher resolution image for a comparable or smaller sized file And supposedly they're planning on coming out with it sometime shortly. So if you're an Android user and you come across this AVIF format, that's kind of just a quick rundown on what it's all about. Just another imaging format for photos and video.
It's like a 12-bit JPEG as opposed to an 8-bit JPEG.
Oh, DL, you're right. You know what? It is a higher bit depth, and that might be something that you can custom set rather than just being one or the other. But I believe you're right.
Is it kind of like Apple's HEIF, whatever they are,
It sounds like it.
like their version of?
That's kind of what I was thinking it was probably going to be.
Yeah.
All righty. So this is a short 4-minute video, and a lot of you might already be familiar with the differences when you're fooling around with your sliders in Lightroom or any other type of raw processor. You know, you'll see clarity, texture, dehaze. This video does a fairly nice, simple job of describing what the real differences are between them. Because if you ever played with them, in some respect, they're similar, and in other respect, they give you a slightly different effect, if you will. So I thought this was kind of a nice educational. It's only 4 minutes long.
Kevin Raposo here with speedyphotographer.com, and in this video I'll explain how and when you should use the texture, clarity, and dehaze sliders in Lightroom. Now if you're looking for something specific, concepts and times are up on screen. A common mistake is cranking clarity to +100 without understanding how it affects the look of the picture or knowing when texture and dehaze are a better choice. We're going to start by looking at the texture tool, which adds contrast based on something called frequency. And to help you understand frequency, let's take a look at this picture of a plane wing that I took on a flight to Portugal. The upper half of this picture has a low frequency. The color and the brightness of the sky and the plane wing is consistent, and there are only a few sharp edges. Now the bottom half of the picture has a high frequency. The color is pretty consistent, but the clouds have many sharp edges and changes in brightness. And the texture slider focuses on adding contrast to those high frequency areas of the picture. If I crank my texture up to +100, you can see that the clouds become much more defined, but the sky, the plane wing, and the overall color of the image only changes slightly. Now if I bring texture down to -100, the clouds essentially turn into a blur, but the edges of the plane wing, which are low frequency, are still sharply defined. Now when we look at the clarity slider, we can see that it focuses on adding contrast to the midtones. When I crank my clarity up to +100, the contrast is added mostly to the clouds and the plane wing, but the sky is pretty much the same because most of it falls in the highlights. And again, if I bring clarity down to -100, both the clouds and the plane wing become blurry. So the key to understanding the difference between texture and clarity is to look at the plane wing. The plane wing has a low frequency, but it specifically falls in the midtones. So the texture tool has much less of an effect on it than the clarity tool. If I crank both sliders down to -100, the edges of the plane wing are still clearly defined with the texture slider, but they become a blurry mess with the clarity tool. Now last but not least, we have the dehaze slider, which is meant to be used for restoring color and contrast to a washed out picture. And because I shot this picture through a plane window, it's a perfect tool to use here. If I increase dehaze to about +30, you'll see that most of the contrast and saturation in the midtones and highlights is restored to the picture. Now the trick with the dehaze slider is to only make slight adjustments. If I crank it up to +100, the color begins to look completely unrealistic and amateur. If I need to restore more contrast, I should be looking at my histogram and then adjusting the blacks or the whites instead. Look how much better it is when I add -40 to the blacks instead of +100 to the dehaze slider. Okay, so now let me go over a few examples of when and how I would use each of these settings. The texture tool mostly comes in handy when I shoot portraits. If the person has wrinkles on their face, it does a much better job of softening them than the clarity tool does. This is because the wrinkles are high frequency, so the texture tool can remove them without reducing the contrast of the lighting. It also comes in handy when I want to emphasize those wrinkles. For example, I cranked up the texture in this picture to draw more attention to the skin of the animal. If I tried to do the same thing with clarity, it would affect almost every area of the image because most of the exposure falls in the midtones. Now the clarity tool comes in handy when I want want to create a more dramatic or a tougher look to my picture. In this picture, I wanted the athlete to look more intense, so I brought up my clarity, which increased the contrast of the lighting on their face. And in this picture, I really wanted to bring out the tough terrain, so I cranked up my clarity and then I reduced the vibrance a little bit to bring out that aspect of the image. Finally, the Dehaze tool is useful when shooting underwater, through a pane of glass, or when dealing with strong reflections. For example, I took this picture at a hockey game, and while I did my best to press the camera lens against the glass, the Dehaze tool helped to restore contrast and color to some of the washed out areas of the image. So hopefully this clears up exactly what each of these tools do and how you can use them in real world situations. Don't forget to click that subscribe button coming up in a second, and if you want another hour of free training, head over to speedyphotographer.com. And I'll see you in the next video.
So a lot of good information there. He goes through it fairly quickly, and it's kind of hard to keep up with, but you can find this on YouTube. Kevin Raposo, Speedy Photographer, if you want more information. Okay, this next one is some street photographs. Just kind of go down through them. I forget now who's. All About Photo Magazine is who published these. This reminds me of a conversation that Dennis Yates and I had at Carnegie Museum last Sunday for our photo walk. Teenie Harris, I guess Carnegie Museum, back sometime within the last 10 or 15 years, bought out his whole collection of photographs. And they've got a lot of them hanging at different locations throughout the art museum. And what was interesting is, obviously he's a well-accomplished, well-known photographer, and there were a lot of great, and almost, I think all of his work is black and white, and an awful lot of good photographs. But what was interesting is interspersed between the really good ones were what I thought, and Dennis seemed to agree with me, were photos that, like, if you were with your family for Thanksgiving or a Christmas or a birthday celebration, just kind of typical type photographs that any one of us would have or could have and do take. But in this case, because it's a famous photographer, not only are his good photographs shown, but his, what I swear are just family photographs, kind of get the same recognition.
A lot of Teenie Harris's stuff was just that. It was just snapshots that he took of the city and things that were going on in the city, and he documented them basically. Which is one of the reasons I like a lot of his stuff. I've looked through almost their whole collection of his stuff. It's interesting, and I like his work a lot.
That might be my favorite. There's one of your dog photos, Margie.
Yep. I like that one.
That's good.
Nice perspective. I think that's it.
Just a question. I think it may have been asked. I asked it before. Those are public photos on the streets and all that. Especially the first ones or most of them. You do not have to ask permission to publish from the subjects. Am I correct? If it's in the street, like the ladies in the shop and everything.
Brian, you want to answer that one?
To my knowledge, I know no, if it's in a public space, you don't have to.
Okay.
Leave unless you publish it. Is that right, Brian?
All right, to step away. What was the question?
My question is, and perhaps I've asked this beforehand, because in one of the submissions, they said to make sure that you get permission from the subjects. And in street photography, from what I gather, you do not have to get permission. Let's say at the Ligonier Ice Festival, when there were subjects, I mean, people behind the sculpture, I didn't have to get permission from them, right? To get the photographs to send for submission to a contest and all that?
No, not for contests and stuff like that. For commercial work is different. So if you were selling the photograph to, you know, to something for an advertisement or something like that, that you have to have permissions for. But if you're just printing the photograph and they're outside in a public place, there is no, I'm trying to think of what the word that I'm looking for, but there's,
You're looking for a reasonable expectation of privacy.
right. So
When you're in a public place, yeah, you don't have that.
Okay, so even if you sell the photograph, let's say Latrobe Art Center, you sell the photograph with subjects that you didn't ask permission, that's still okay?
that is okay unless it's being sold, like I said, for commercial purposes.
Okay.
So if it's going to be used as an advertisement or something like that, then you would have had to have permission from the people inside the photo.
Yeah, if you choose to monetize, that's the legal word that they use.
Oh, okay.
If you choose to monetize the image, then Brian's right. You're going to need, you know, a release to be able to do that.
Mhm.
But selling a print is not monetizing.
Oh, selling a print is not, okay.
Right. If you're selling it to a chainsaw company to advertise, look what an artist can do with our chainsaws, that would be.
Okay,
But just selling a print
okay.
isn't.
Yeah, Beth, you're right. That layer is an artist selling a print, and
Yeah.
yes, you'd be allowed to show it at a gallery, and it could sell. Yeah.
Okay.
So there are, I guess, the big question, not the big question, but the way to look at that is there's layers to this going down, and that's we're each addressing the different layers that you hit.
In past sessions, John, you had mentioned that you sold prints of buildings and all that. Do you have to have permission to sell that commercially and all that, those prints of buildings and structures?
No, I treated it as I'm standing in a
How do you-
public place, and
Okay.
and I can photograph it and sell those images.
Okay, so you did not need permission from the owner. or anything
Now,
like
well, now there is another layer to that. How do I want to say
Yeah.
this? If I'm standing, but let's say by a house or some architecture, and I photograph that, okay, then I have freedoms then doing that. But if I use a telephoto lens to look at detail, maybe in the windows, then you get into invasion of privacy issues. So there's again different legal layers to that.
that.
And also the commercial and whatever the word was that John used there a minute ago.
Monetization.
Monetization also says is the same for properties. And, you know, like you're taking a picture of a farm. If you sell that to somebody for a commercial, then that's commercial, and you'd have to have a permission from the farm owner to do that.
Yeah.
But if you're putting that on the wall at Latrobe Art Center and somebody buys it because they want to hang it on their wall,
Yeah.
you're perfectly allowed to do that with no questions.
The other question was, you know, and John alluded to this, I mean, Jim alluded to this earlier about these photographs, especially the gentleman from Pittsburgh, that they were family photographs. What constitute a good photograph that, oh my, you're famous and all that, versus my photographs or anybody else's photographs that are almost the same kind of subject matter. But again, mine are rejected and his is accepted. I mean, by what criteria is used and all that? I mean, because some of these photos, you know, any one of us could take. I mean, not that, you know, with that good. I mean, I'm not that good, but I'm just saying, you know, what criteria do they use to say this is better than number 2 or 3 or 4 and all that?
Well, it's someone once told me whenever I was working with pictures for contests to see if I could win or not. A great photograph is great to you and the person that judged it that day. Because I have pictures hanging on my wall right now that have won best of show that weren't accepted in the next show. So it's a matter of who's looking at it, and it's, you know, what their personal feelings are. Now, what makes Teenie Harris great?
Yeah.
Teenie Harris was if you look into his history, he was a news photographer, and he photographed the city of Pittsburgh in the streets in the Hill District and stuff like that. And his stuff was published all the time. So when his collection came available, and the Carnegie Museum of Art bought it, or some of it was donated and they bought some of it, you know, that kind of puts you on the top of the list as far as that goes. But his stuff was, you know, he was a photographer, a mainstay photographer through Pittsburgh for years, through
Right.
newspapers and publishing through there. So that kind of, you know, it gives a little bit more stout to his not so good photographs because of who he is.
So if you submitted that picture of the church gathering, do you think you would be able to be accepted as the primary prize and all that, or is it just because of his name?
It would depend on the judge that day.
Okay.
Because a lot of submissions to contests and things like that are submitted anonymously. The judge doesn't know who it belongs to, as far as a contest goes. But that picture like that was probably published on a newspaper.
You know, that really goes for just about anything that is being judged, whether it's photography, animals, and etc. When I used to show different animals, it was who is going to judge, so I'll know what to look for to show that judge.
Oh.
Judges are the same way. When I was involved with the photography club in Texas, they had 2 judges that were my members. And I talked to them and they said, we argue about what we like continually. He likes one thing, I like another. What he likes, I don't always like. And that's what it gets down to. It depends on, like Brian said, the judge.
Yeah.
You know, another street photography, if y'all haven't seen his work, and I love his work now, is your Homer Page. He is so good. And it's taking pictures, black and white pictures of daily life. A lot of it is in New York.
A lot of pictures to take of New York, that's for sure.
Well, this is usually back in the 40s, 50s, back in that area.
Does that take care of you, Bob?
Yeah, thank you, Jim.
Sure. Good questions. So this is another one of those tips that, again, a lot of you might just know this by experience. Best way to delete photos from your memory card. And I think I learned this maybe 2 years ago or so now. But to make a long story short, there's a number of ways to delete photos. The recommendation is that you do it by reformatting your card in camera rather than any of the other ways, doing it manually or from your computer, etc. And I'm not sure if Brian or DL or someone else might be able to explain why it's the case, but apparently the safest way to delete the photos and make sure you don't somehow corrupt the memory card in the process is to do it by formatting. So Brian or DL or anyone else, do you want to expand on that at all?
I really can't speak to that because I don't format my cards at all. I have every card I've shot since 2013.
You're kidding me.
I kid you not.
How many cards do you have, DL?
I don't know. I don't know. But I just think of it as an extra backup.
Well, I am curious, do you have some type of a system? Because it must be hundreds of cards. How do you keep track of them?
Yeah, really.
The cards themselves?
Yeah.
What's
I
on
really don't. They sit in the box. It's just an extra backup that I have. So if I ever lose all my computers, all my hard drives, all my other backups, I still have that.
Do you label the cards?
No. If I were to need to go back to them, I'm probably going to have to just copy everything in and then just go by date.
Yeah.
But it's still, I have that extra option. That's the way I look at it.
I know there's a lot of people that do that. When I worked for Radio Shack, I had a guy that was a photographer in Pittsburgh that came in and bought 50 cards a month off of me. And he shot, and when that card was full, he took that card out and he did label and all that kind of stuff, but he kept everything on a card. I'm still using, I'm using the cards I bought 5 or 6 years ago, the same cards.
Me too.
Because I do, when I'm done with my stuff, usually once I've uploaded the photos to Lightroom and to my hard drives and I've got them backed up there, then the next time I pick my camera up to go out, I usually turn it on. I'll hit play on the back of it to see what pictures are in there and go, yep, those are already on my computer, and I format the card and then I'm ready to go.
You do format them then.
Yes, I format the card in the camera always. And that's always the way I've done it because it does a complete delete of everything that's on that card.
I heard if you just, and I don't know if this is true or not, but if you just delete it, you can still retrieve some of the stuff on the card. So there's still something.
If you delete it, it marks the file for delete as the space is available. If you format it, it erases, as I understand it, erases the file allocation table. So where the files are located goes away, but the files are still there.
They are still there. You have to use a special kind of software that's going to write over top, like write zeros, then write ones, then write zeros. And I think for government work, you have to do that 7 times.
Yeah,
So that,
Reality is about 30.
so you're saying that even if you format it, the files are still there?
They're
I
still
know
there.
that.
they're still there until you replace them with another photo.
Right.
So in other words, if you do your disk, if you format your disk, your pictures are there, but as you take more pictures, you don't know which ones are still there. A lot of them are being written over.
Yeah, you're writing over top of them.
You're writing over, so some will still be there, some won't, but you can't access them without special software.
Correct.
Because what's gone is the index, if you will, so
So
that
the
so that the
software
computer or
that-
where knows where to find those pictures.
The software
Well,
recover
you
the
can-
files from the card is straightforward until you start to use it. And once you start to use it, it replaces parts of the card with new information.
Right.
And you can't
Right.
recover it.
Well,
And
isn't
so-
deleting it still about the same way or not?
No, you can go back and with like forensic software, you can get in there and actually read the ones and zeros from the drive
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
then
that's what
parse
I-
it into something.
Yeah.
But once you start overwriting stuff,
Yeah,
stuff
it's
disappears, and then you need other kinds of software that can measure what might have been underneath what the data is that's easily read. It gets pretty deep.
Yeah, the bottom line is nothing's ever erased. It's just written over.
Right.
Depending on how you do it. So it's always there. That's
Yeah,
why I think I think it was DL said earlier, a special software that rewrites everything on top of it. So if you want to throw, your hard drive away, you can't just delete it. You want to get rid of all the sensitive information. You got to do that, which takes a long time. But
Yeah.
you
A
write
lot
7,
of
8 times.
a lot of data centers that are serious about getting rid of their data, not only do they'll write over top of it like 30 or 40 times, and then they'll shred the drives, toss it into something that will actually chew it up.
So if I have an old drive I no longer use, and I remove it, how do I destroy the information on there?
Get creative.
I mean, I've taken hammers out.
Well, you could actually put a drill to it and just drill a couple
Right.
holes in it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not going to delete everything, but it would make it very difficult to piece it
Yeah,
back
yeah.
together.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
lots of things you
Unless
can
you've
do to
got
make
some
it very
sensitive
difficult.
information that
but-
like NASA would be interested in, it's really no one's going to do that put that kind of effort into it. So
Well, I've taken hammers to mine. So that's the reason I was wondering.
well, that's not if you take hammers to it, you got to get into the discs because sometimes
Yeah.
you just hammer the case, you don't bust the discs up that are spinning in there. That's where all the information is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where I get to, yeah.
Yeah.
Take it to the shooting range.
That's
a little
right.
more fun. No, my boss does that exactly. Every time we have a drive that has to go away, he takes it down to the shooting range and puts about 30 bullets in it.
That's a good
Well,
idea.
We can do that, or a drill is easier than hammering. I didn't even think about a drill. I mean, yeah, because I do the hammer, so the drill would be great. It's a lot
You'd be
easier.
surprised though. You need
Those
a pretty
cases are
sharp,
pretty
powerful
tough.
drill to get through that.
Yeah,
So
the
be
cases are pretty
prepared.
tough. You're
It's
going
not
to
as easy as you think.
It's going to be some work to get through that.
Oh, tell me about it.
Get a drill press.
Yep,
A
got
big
one.
one.
We'll use it. All right, thank you.
Speaking
Well,
about
it's only a
hard
few
drives,
SKUs to take them apart.
speaking of hard drives, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about hard drives failing and all that. Well, 2 weeks ago, my hard drive failed that I couldn't mount it. In other words, it connected to my time machine, and it was a Dickens, so I had to get a new one. And eventually I got it to work, but I can't back up anything into it and all that, even though I still have some space. I guess some files were corrupted. So yes, hard drives can go bad and all that.
Definitely.
Sure. Backup hard drives, that is.
Yep,
All drives can.
Right.
Doesn't matter. And it's more a question of when.
Right.
I agree.
So Bob, apparently you didn't lose anything then. You did have backups. of
I
video.
had backups, right? But the thing is, I couldn't mount it. In other words, to have it back onto my main computer, it just didn't recognize it. So I had to fidget with it, go onto YouTube, find out how to work on it. And eventually it is, but it's a delicate thing. It could unmount itself very easily. And then I would have to go through the whole process again. So
which one died? The hard drive in your computer or your backup?
no, the external hard drive, the backup I use for Time Machine, for the Apple, which has all my pictures from eternity.
That's what Brian says, always have at least 2 external hard drives. And
Right.
that's what I do.
So nothing is infallible.
That's right.
All right, one more to go. So the Royal Photographic Society now has online its archive going all the way back to 1853.
Wow.
And I haven't really gone in there to look, but just browsing this article, they like the advertisements. I think it would be fun just looking at the ads in the magazines from back when.
I love doing that.
So if you got some in technical articles on photography, photos, there's a more recent one. So anyway, if you're interested, it's available online. Okay, Brian, that is it for me.
Okay.
The Carnegie Museum outing was good, I thought. Nice to get with people.
So I have to share a story here. Marty and I exchanged a couple of emails earlier this week. Anytime we have a photo walk, either I or Pat have been taking photos just of the group and individuals during the course of the photo walk.
It's great.
And so I shared 3 or 4 of those with Marty earlier this week. And she sent me a kind of a strange reply. And initially I didn't quite understand it, but in essence, it said, I thought we weren't allowed to take photos of nudes. And so I went back and looked at the photos that I had sent her. This is for the newsletter. And sure enough, one of my photos was several of people who were there sitting on the one of the benches there. And in the background was in fact a painting that had a nude on it. So Brian, I don't know if Marty has permission to publish this in our newsletter or not.
I'm fine with it.
I know you would be.
Well, it's art.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, it's a piece of artwork. And actually there's 2 nudes. There's 2 paintings with nudes. So.
Well, I knew.
I got to tell you, Jim, for a minute there, I really was regretting missing the walk.
They're bringing males. So
I think the one was a male, as a matter of fact.
I think both of them are.
Okay.
All right, you can't publish them now.
No.
Change my mind. No, you can't do that one.
Yeah, you definitely need that.
Well, it shows that I was looking at details.
I bet
Yes,
you
you're
were.
very observant. I agree.
Okay. All right. So on the agenda for tonight was exporting photos. So I'm going to show you my process for exporting a photo and how I do it and what I do with it. And like I said, there's lots of ways to do this. There's lots of information out there as to what size to do this with and what you're going to do with it and all this and that. This is how I export my photos if I'm going to be using them as something I'm going to post on Reddit or post on Facebook or whatever other site that we're using at that point, Flickr or whatever. And I've found that this works fairly well. I think the pictures are of a great size that post well to the internet. And then when we go to, that's from Lightroom. When we go to Photoshop, 99% of what I export out of Photoshop is for printing, because that's where I print from. So anything that I'm going to send to a printer goes out of Photoshop. I don't export out of Lightroom for a printer. And don't ask me why. I don't know why I do that specifically, but I feel that it's easier to size photographs in Lightroom or in Photoshop than it is in Lightroom. So what's that, Dennis?
I said I do the same.
Okay.
I do the same.
Yeah. So when I'm sending something to a printer, it comes out of Photoshop. So anyhow, we'll start with Lightroom. I'll show you my export process, and then I'll show you my export process out of Photoshop. And if anyone has any comments or suggestions as to what I'm doing that might be different or be better, feel free to speak up. So I'm going to see how this works out. I'm going to share a desktop. I have multiple desktops here, and see how this works as far as sharing wise goes. Okay, do you guys see a big red flower?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is Lightroom. I just pulled this flower up a little bit ago, and there's something in it that is killing me. We have to fix it before we export it. Roll button. Let's try that. Okay. Sorry, guys. That was bothering me. I didn't see that whenever I first pulled this picture up. So anyhow, exporting out of Lightroom. To me, it's very simple. It's what is to how I do it. Go to the library mode, and if I just right click on there, and that's how I do it. I just right click on it. Unless there's several pictures that I'm going to export at a time, then I'll bring them all up and just select them. But I'll go down here to export and export. So I don't have any, I don't have any presets in this. So this is my new Lightroom on my new computer. So I did have some presets that I would click on from time to time that I'd made up, but for right now, we're not going to, I won't do that. So first thing is exported, is where are you going to export it to? I export it to my desktop. I put it in a folder that's on my desktop called 2021 uploads. That's when I send it there, then I know that that's to go to wherever it is that I'm going to put it at that point.
Okay, was I the only one that he froze on?
Nope.
Oh,
Can you guys hear me now? Am I okay?
Back up to export to desktop.
Okay. Export to desktop. That's where I send them to. I put a folder on my desktop called 2021 uploads, and I just send my pictures there. So simple and easy. Then that way, whenever I upload, when I go to put something on Facebook or Reddit or whatever, they're always in the same spot. They're on that folder on my desktop. I've already done my renaming in the import whenever we import the photos. So I don't need to rename anything. I don't change the names anywhere when I'm exporting. You can, though, however, do that if you want to. You can tell it to export the photo under a certain name or whatever. I know on occasion we've been asked to name our files a certain way. And when we're asked to do that, you can do that right here. Name your file and send it that way.
Oops.
Once again,
Ryan, you cut out on us.
Are you
stuck?
well, reach out and slap him.
Can you guys hear
Ryan,
me?
you might want to put Lightroom on a smaller screen.
Ryan, we lost your audio. So we lost you again.
Hold on one second.
Stop it.
Can you guys hear me at least?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I don't know what's going on. Hold on one second. All right, let's try this over here. You guys still hear me and see me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Let me try resharing this screen and see what happens.
Do you hear us when you freeze?
Yeah, I heard everyone telling me Margie was going to slap me, and yeah.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, I heard all that. Mm-hmm. All right, let's try this, see what this does. See, my internet connection should be great because it's running a 900 on here. Okay, do you guys see Lightroom now?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's try this again. Let's go back to export. Okay, we're all good with the export location part?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, file naming, like I said, I've named my files whenever they come in from import is how I do that. You can file name here though. So like Jim has requested sometimes that our files be named a certain way when we send them over for a contest or for whatever it is. You could do that most certainly right here and write your file name in and do that on the export itself. Video we don't mess with. My file settings are always this: JPEG, sRGB. My quality is always at 100. And I don't limit my file sizes. I want them to be as big as they can be. So I never limit my file size. Quality always at 100 on the file setting. My image sizing. So this is how I do this. A lot of people do this differently. I tell Lightroom to resize my image on the long edge. So whichever is the longest edge of the image to 8 inches at 300 pixels per inch. That to me gives me a really nice file size that I can publish pretty much anywhere, knowing that when I put it on Facebook, they're going to cut it down anyhow. So it doesn't matter to me, but this gives me a nice file to send out. So long edge, 8 inches on 300 DPI.
Why?
I just said because I know that gives me a nice file size to send out.
Well, if you don't resize it, you still have a nice.
But if you don't resize a picture from a 50 megapixel camera, and then you try to email that picture, you're not going to.
Well, I do my, that all comes in with Photoshop when I do mine, but.
Right, and I'll get to Photoshop in a minute, but when I'm exporting out of here, if I would export and not resize it to anything and just export the full size, that picture, I wouldn't be able to upload it to anywhere or send it to anybody, email it or anything like that, because it's just too big.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because it's coming off of a huge camera.
Yeah.
So
Brian, give me for instance, at that 8-inch long edge, roughly, and I know it depends on the photo, but what are your file sizes approximately? It seems like they'd still be fairly big.
Well, I was just looking at that, Brian, the 8-inch dimension at 300 pixel density is going to be 2,400 pixels on the 8-inch size.
So can you guys see that information page up there right now?
Yeah. Oh, so it's not that big. Okay.
So it's about the 1.1 megabytes.
Yeah.
Roughly. I mean, they'll go up and down from there depending on what's in the picture. But that you can email that to anybody.
Yeah, too much.
When you post it to your social media places and stuff like that, it posts at a good size that they're going to cut down from there. You never want them to expand your pictures because they're too small. I would rather them compress them whenever I post them to whatever site that I'm posting them to. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Brian, why do you need the 8-inch on it? Can't you just say the resolution's 300 pixels per inch? What's the 8-inch give you?
The 8-inch gives me that file size. If I leave that, if I just export it at 300 pixels per inch, the width of that actual picture is about 46 inches.
Yeah.
Because of the file size of because of the megapixel of my camera. So the width from the camera is huge. So I wanted to cut it down so that I can make those uploads the way I want them to.
Okay.
And that's where I was having trouble with Jim. When Jim says, Marty, what did you do? I just put that long edge thing. So my pictures, when I sent them, were really weird.
I've had the same problem, Marty.
Yeah. Now you do have options to do short edge and megapixels and percentages and dimensions and all that. I've found that just using long edge and 8 inches works
simple.
the best. And I can, like I said, and no matter what I want to do with that picture, once it's in my upload file, I can put it anywhere or email it to anybody with no questions. I know that they can receive the
You're
picture.
froze.
Are you freaking kidding me?
I still shot. There you
Now
go.
he's back.
Am I back?
Yeah.
You're back.
That makes me so upset.
Well, why do you do, I'm sorry. Why do you,
Brian, okay, go ahead, Margie.
I'm sorry. Why do you do that instead of percentages? I mean, I always have done percentages and I don't.
Well, like I said, I do this because this is the way I've done it. And I'm not saying that it's right or wrong or the only way to do it.
Yeah.
I don't understand the percentages. If I go in here to percentages, do I export it at 80% or 50% or 10% or I don't know. What do I export it at? I know that if I export it at 8 inches at 300, it gives me a file that I can use.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's the reason, you know, in my experimentation with that, that's what I found that works the best. At
Okay.
least for me.
Is that what you use for Reddit, Brian?
Yes.
Okay.
Any picture you've seen me post in the last 10 years has been done that way, right there.
Yeah, I've been really screwing that up then. When I post my pictures to Reddit, I was lowering the quality under file settings.
No, no.
So
No.
I won't do that anymore.
No,
Yeah.
I always do it. Right there's what, like I said, that goes into my file, which if I slide this down, you can see 2021 uploads, and anything that's in there is that size.
Yeah.
And Susan, I know that your country crossed. When I tried to put it into the newsletter, I had to really downsize it. It took me like 3 minutes to downsize it because it was so big.
I'm sorry, did you see the photos I just sent you?
No, it was Suzanne's, not yours.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, I was totally doing that wrong then. So I see what Brian's saying. So from now on, I'll do something similar to that.
Okay. Output sharpening, I don't do anything with that. Some people will use that and sharpen for a screen and stuff like that. I don't. I leave it alone. I've already done my sharpening when I worked on the picture, so I don't have it do anything else to it. Metadata, include all metadata. And I remove personal info and I remove location info. Just a yes or no, you can do that. You don't want to do it, it doesn't matter. That's just the way I do it. If I want people to know where I took the picture, I'll be posting that when I post the picture. I do not watermark my pictures anymore. I used to. I've got away from that. I don't think anything I take is going to be stolen for any major purposes, so I don't watermark them. And then I don't do anything post-processing. So post-processing, you can tell it to do different things, show it in the Finder, open Adobe, you can send it over to Photoshop at the same time, all that kind of stuff. I don't do any of that. I just leave it alone. And I would export the photo.
Hey, Brian.
Would you feel comfortable making a print at those settings, Brian, or would you do something different if you're making a print out here? I know you said you use Photoshop, but I'm just curious.
We're going to do something different when I use a print. So I do not print from Lightroom, and I don't export from Lightroom for a printer. That's just the way I do it. So if I slide this down, I'm going to open 2021 up, and we'll see that picture now is in my folder and ready for me to upload to wherever. That particular one came out to 2.8 megabytes in size. Seriously.
Would you feel comfortable printing that picture though? I mean, if you could print it, you wouldn't do that. I'm just curious.
It'll print. I mean, if I wanted to print that in an 8x10, it would be no problem or anything like that. But I choose to print from Photoshop.
No, I understand, but I always print out of Lightroom. So I'm just trying to get some perspective on if you have any perspective on what you would do different if you're doing it out of Lightroom, that's all. I was just asking.
I'll be honest with you. I have never printed out of Lightroom.
Okay.
I tried to learn the print module. I don't like the print module for Lightroom. I have issues with it. And I've never really gotten on to how to do something out of Lightroom to get it to send it to my printer.
Yeah, I've always had trouble printing out of it too, but I export out of here and then I send them to be printed elsewhere is what I typically
That's what I do. I export a picture and then send it to be printed. Like
Yeah.
I don't print from Lightroom to a printer.
Yeah, would you be comfortable using what you've done here, Brian, to send to a printer? Not your printer, but to a company that's going to print it for you?
You'd have to size it differently.
Yeah, you'd have to size it differently on that export size. Would have to be done differently.
Yeah.
This is mainly for the websites.
The Photoshop procedure is more straightforward and easier to understand.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
The only problem I have with your approach, Brian, is you now have two files with the same name on your computer.
Well, not really, because once I've uploaded these pictures, so there's 3 in here right now because I'm still fooling around with a couple of these. Once I'm done with these, I just take these and delete them, throw them away.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the reason it's just a file on my desktop, because it's not a permanent file. I don't keep it all year round or anything like that. I don't keep all the pictures in there. Once I've uploaded them to where they're going to go and I'm not going to do anything else with them, I'm going to grab them, throw them in a trash can and forget that they ever existed.
Yeah, okay.
I still have them in Lightroom. I can go back there and export
Sure,
them if
sure.
I want to. So I don't, it's like I said, it's not a permanent file for me.
Well, Brian, to get back to Rob's question, if you would go back to the export, and you kind of said it, but maybe you should show, you want to save the file at a higher quality if you're going to send it out for print.
I'm kind of curious to see what the Photoshop qualities and settings are, and maybe I can back it into the into the Lightroom, is what I'm thinking.
See, I like using Lightroom because I can do a batch of photos. In Photoshop, I can't do that.
Right, but well, yeah. You can in Photoshop if you know how to write an action.
Yeah, I'm not that good in Photoshop, but I know Lightroom. So I'd like to be able to. That's why I was asking the questions about what you would do differently if you were going to print them, because I
just
do a lot of that.
Change the long edge to, I think it's 100% or something. Or you could do it megapixels or percentage. That 100% and the 100% quality up above should give you a fairly large size JPEG file that would be more than good enough to send to the printer. And if you thought it was too big, you could just reduce that sizing a little bit.
Well, let's see. I exported that at 100%. Let's go compare them. Let's see what here. So that one was the original one, which exported at 2.8 megabytes. That one exported at 5.9 megabytes.
Yeah, a lot bigger.
Dimensions of 4800 by 3300. Where this one was 3400 by 2400.
Yeah.
So yes, it is bigger. And it's a bigger file size, but again, 5.9 megabytes usually ends you being able to send it somewhere.
You're right.
But you can upload it to an online printing company.
Yeah, I could upload it to an online printing company, but what size is it? You know, it's a 4800 by 3300. So it's not an 8 by 10. It's more like an 8 by 12, actually. And John, you could step in there. I know you understand those dimensions probably better than I do, but I mean, I would assume that's somewhere in the neighborhood of an aspect ratio of an 8 by 12.
Yeah, I was just looking. You remember, Brian, back from the older days when I did that laminated card.
I just grabbed it off my desk. I have it laying here in front.
Yeah, I was just looking at it. It's somewhere around what that image is. It's somewhere around a 12 by 16 in size. Now, again, talking about if you're in Lightroom and you want to export an image that you're going to send to some service printer to have them do it, Let's say you want to do an 8x10. Well, the first thing you would do is in the Lightroom image crop area, you would
That-
crop it to an 8x10.
That was my next question. Did he even crop that to set it up to anything so that it's not just what came out of the printer, out of the computer?
I don't know where you
Out of
had
your
the crop
phone.
settings.
It was cropped there.
It was cropped to an 8x10.
No, I didn't crop it to any particular size, which I almost never do on my pictures.
It's a
Yeah,
2:3 ratio.
Well, if you're sending it to a printing service, you're going to have to specify the size of the print that you want to get. And in order to do that, then you have to set your crop ratio to the size of the print you desire, and then go down and print to the long edge of that. So if I cropped it to an 8x10, when I exported, I would make the long edge 10 inches at 300 pixels per inch, which is kind of the industry standard, unless you know you're printing to an Epson printer, which has a resolution of 360 dpi. But that's what I do is I crop the image to the size I want, and then I export it at 300 dpi. And if you send anything else to the printer, to the service, they're going to resample it, and you really don't want them to touch the file. So you have everything set if you do it the way I was describing. At least that's the way I've been working for decades.
Right. So in this particular case, just what John said, what I did was I cropped that. I just recropped it to the aspect ratio of a 4x5 or 8x10. So now that I know that square will fit in 8x10, or that rectangle, by the way. And if I go back to export and export this picture out, if I resize it to 100% or leave, basically don't resize it, or I can just shut the resizing off and leave it at 300 deep or 300 pixels per inch. Let's export that and see what size it is. And use a unique name.
It's pretty quick.
Did someone say it was pretty quick?
Yeah.
Okay,
Not
so
much smaller.
there is the third one that went out. So that's the one that is a 8x10. It's at 5.6 megabytes and it's 4319 by 3455.
Brian, I just looked on that card. An 8x10 at 300 dpi ought to be 2400 by 3000.
Right. That's what I was just looking at too there, John. By the way, I have that card here.
I keep mine right here on the desk too.
That card lays here. It's been laying here since John made those.
Me too.
That's right. I keep it right by my monitor too.
So-
It's real handy for that kind of stuff.
So the question is, if I cut that to the aspect ratio and send it at 100%, that's the reason that this is bigger, because I have a bigger file size.
Right.
So let's go back one more time.
Long size 10 inch.
Let's
Long
go
side 10 inches.
export again. And we're going to resize this to fit
The long dimension 10 inches.
Yeah.
long side at 10 inches. So now our picture should be an 8x10 when it exports.
Mhm.
Let's tell it to use another unique name. Okay, and that'll be number 4 of the same picture. So now that is 3000 by 3750. It's still a little bit off of your dimensions there, John.
Yeah. I don't know why you're not getting 3000 by 2400.
Boy, this is harder than Photoshop. Let me tell you.
Okay, so with that being said, let's go over to Photoshop real quick. All right, let me get rid of this one here, guys. And if I bring Photoshop over here, you guys see Photoshop now?
Yep.
No.
Okay. So here is Photoshop with a picture in it. So I wanted to crop this and send it to a printer. So I'm going to go up to crop. I'm going to go width, height, and resolution. We're going to crop that at 10 inches wide by 8 inches. Oop, that's in pixels. We don't want pixels.
Inches.
Inches.
Oh.
Inches. Let's change. We don't want 0.033 either. 10 inches by 8 inches at 300 DPI. That sets my size. We'll just fool around with that for a second. There we go. Good enough. Okay, now I know I have a picture that's 8 inches by 10 inches at 300 DPI. And the way I do this is File, Save As. Save it to my computer, desktop, 2021 uploads. And I'm just going to name this 8 by 10 so that we know what we're doing here. Format JPEG. Embedded color profile is sRGB.
Yeah.
I leave those things alone and hit save. And then I save at maximum quality of 12, always. And I don't care if I was saving a 72 DPI picture, I save it at maximum quality. Okay.
That's all the higher the quality is on there?
Yeah, on here it only goes to, yeah, Photoshop goes to maximum of 12.
Okay.
So now I have a 300 DPI picture at 2400 by 3000. And guess what? That matches up perfectly to John's card. 8 by 10 is 2400 by 3000 at 300 DPI. See how quick and simple that was?
And if you go on, go ahead.
But isn't your file size small? Your file size is under a megabyte.
Yes, but if I send that to a printer right there, that picture will print perfectly.
Yeah, that's a file size that you get once you specify that I want it printed as an 8 by 10. That's what
So
it
in other
is.
words, they will do that to you anyway, is what you're saying.
Well,
Right.
if you sent them something longer or larger, their machines will resample it.
Right. So if I sent them something that was in the same aspect ratio of an 8 by 10, but much, much bigger, and told them to print me an 8 by 10, that's what they would print me, that file size right there. Because that is an 8 by 10 at 300 DPI.
Yeah, no,
How's
the other thing to note there is why that file size is small is because there's a huge field in that picture that's black, that there's no texture. Brian, if you pick a picture, a different image that has texture all throughout the image, and let's do the same thing and do an 8 by 10, you'll get a larger file size as a result, but it'll still be 2400 by 3000.
Right. That's true.
I guess I'm confused. What's the difference between this picture and the one we sent out of Lightroom that was also set up by 8 by 10? And it was the it was the 100% and all that stuff. That other one was 3.8 megabytes. So what would an offline printer do differently from the two files?
But when I sent that from this one is the one we set up as an 8 by 10.
Right.
At 300 DPI, but it didn't come out as an 8 by 10 at 300 DPI.
Right.
That is my issue with Lightroom.
Yeah.
No, I think you did something squirrely, Brian.
Yeah, go look at the crop again.
Yeah, either that or look at the setup again, because I export 8 by 10s and I get them 2400 by 3000. So yeah, there's something set up on that page a little different.
Okay, so this is the crops, the crop on Lightroom. Aspect ratio, 4 by 5 or 8 by 10.
Yeah.
Huh. Go to export.
Okay. Export.
And go down to the ratio. Do length by width. Width by height. 10 inches by 8 inches. 300.
let's see what that does.
So in all of this, I'm going to throw another wrench in it whenever you're done looking at that.
That worked.
See, there you go. 2,400 by 3,000.
So that one was perfect.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
the reason it's a bigger file is it's a different picture. There's more information in
Yeah.
here. See that area back there that's got color and stuff in it? The other one,
Okay.
this one here, that's all black because I worked on this picture and made it black. So black is no information, so it's going to be a smaller file size.
Right.
But
Okay.
it's still the exact same dimensions.
Mhm.
Okay, so I use Lightroom, or I use Photoshop rather, to do my cropping because I know every single time I do it, it's exactly the way I want it to be. And also, if I want to use a different color profile, I do, because sometimes I use different color profiles when I send stuff to print. And I can do that from Photoshop easier for myself. And mainly because I've been doing it that way for years.
Okay.
So
But
Brian,
do
when
it
you send
either
this to, when you send this to the commercial printer and they, you know, they give you the insert of the picture, and sometimes they say it's not within the field. Do all your pictures fit perfectly into 8x10 slot without any cropping from the printer service?
Yes, because I cropped it at exactly 8x10. That picture right there
Okay.
is an 8x10. Now, when I upload that to MPix or wherever I'm going to have it printed at, and I choose an 8x10, that picture will come back exactly like that.
Okay.
No questions asked. And that's another reason I do it this way. And then if I wanted that picture in 11x14, I would open the original picture back up in Photoshop, crop it to an 11x14, save it, and then upload it as an 11x14. And then I know that my 11x14 will come back exactly the way I cropped it. When I print at home, I can print whatever size I want. So if I want an 11x14.4, it don't matter. I can do that because I'm printing my own pictures and using my own paper. But when I'm sending it to a printer and I'm sending out 8x10s, they get cropped in Photoshop, every single one of them, to an exact 8x10, put in a file, and then uploaded for photographs to be printed.
Yeah.
I do the same thing.
Okay, I have two questions.
Okay.
One is when my brain's not working properly. I just letting everybody know. How do you get your the metadata to show up, like when you were showing your files? Do you just right click on that file?
Where? I'm sorry.
Like when you were showing us what the metadata was for your picture. Yeah. So do you right click or does just
well, on a Mac, if you highlight something like that and hit Command I, it brings up the information for the page for that particular file.
Okay, so it would be Control I.
It may. I'm not sure. Can someone on a PC tell me that? Or Margie, do you right click and then show properties? I believe it is.
Yeah, let me get.
I just go to properties.
Right. So properties on a PC, on a Mac, if you do Command I, it gives you this information page that has the metadata in it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then my second question, in Photoshop, can you just go into image size instead?
Yes, most certainly.
And then do like a canvas size. Because like I put a black border around my photos. So if I go into image size and I pick the size of the image I want, and then I go into canvas size and then I make it a little bit bigger, like 2 inches bigger.
Right.
Absolutely. So this picture right now is cropped to an 8x10. And if I wanted to add a little bit of a white border to it, I can go to canvas size. And let's work with inches since that's what we were working with. And if I wanted to add a 1 inch border the whole way around, I change that to an 11, change this to a 9. And I'm probably gonna have to change the color to white because if I add it black, you won't see any difference.
A 1 inch all the way
You're
around?
gonna
Don't you
get a
want to go
1/2
2
inch, Brian.
inches?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. So this would be 12. And this would be 10. Correct?
Yes. 2 inches.
There you go.
Okay. Okay. So I was doing it right. Okay.
Now, the thing is, though, now my picture, if we look at the image size of this picture,
Yeah.
is now a 10 by 12.
Right.
Okay, so now it won't fit on an 8 by 10 sheet of paper.
Right. No, I understand because I was making mine 16 by 20s. So, okay. I was doing it right. Okay.
But if we wanted the white border to be on
On the picture, you can just make back to an 8 by 10.
right. So 10, and I don't know why that went to a number.
You have to hit the unlink thing.
So now I can do that. Now my outside border is an 8 by 10.
Right. Okay. Okay. I was doing it correct then. I have to question myself. Like, I went to the eye doctor and they asked if I was having some short-term memory loss. I can sit down and things that I've done on the computer, it's like I try to do it and then I can't do it for the next picture. And it's like, I had to call Annie the one night. It's like, Annie, I just did it on this other photo and I have no clue what I just did.
Brian, go back to image, please. And image size. Bring that up. Now, if you're going to be posting something, this is what I do. Well, you've got it as an 8 by 10, but if you have the actual size of the picture, I actually resize mine here and I use pixels. And I'll go, 3,000 pixels, let's say. And that's the way that I put things on the website because I know how large that I want it. So if this, we're working off an 8 by 10 here instead of the original size.
Right. That is okay as long as you're not going up. If you're going up from the size of the actual picture, then you're
No, we're talking about the actual
the
picture.
original down. Yeah, that would be fine.
Yeah, we're reducing it to put it on the website. You just go there and it'll have the actual size there. And then you can see as you reduce it, okay, I only want 2,500 pixels there. And I know that's going to be fine to go ahead and put on Reddit or anything else that I want.
So this is the original size. I just took it back there.
Oh yeah, go to image
size.
See how
12 by 8 is 300.
Yeah, get rid of that.
If I go to, you want pixels.
Yeah, but you've got it still at the 8 by.
Well, it was a cropped image already when I sent it there.
Okay, I got you. So let's just go ahead and go to I use pixels and throw in 2,000 just on the width, 2,000. Just write 2,000 in there, 2,000.
That's a lot bigger than 2,000.
That's a lot bigger than 2,000. Okay. And go ahead and hit OK. And it's going to reduce it. And don't worry about the height. And it will reduce it. Just hit OK. And as it reduces it, then you know that you've got a picture that's going to, you got more than 2,000 there.
Looks good.
Say,
What do you have, 20,000?
Something didn't seem right because it took a while to do that, and it should not have taken.
No, your measurements are wrong. Image size.
They link.
You have to link it. There you go.
There you go.
Hey, that's better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
Okay.
about how fast it should
You
have
know it's going to be that size, so you can go ahead and put it over there on Reddit or wherever. And I've put up to 4,000 up on mine. I only worry about the width, and it'll stay, the length will stay the same ratio, is what I'm saying.
Right. So yeah, there's, like I said, there's 1,000 ways to do this. there's 1,000 ways to prepare a picture for printing or the web or whatever it is that you're going to do with it. I find that when I'm printing, I like to crop and send straight from Photoshop or export from Photoshop. If I'm just sending something, I'm setting something up to go to the web, it comes out of a Lightroom because that's where I'm typically working from, and it's quick and easy. But I like Photoshop to print from. That's just, and it's a personal preference. It's the way I've done it for years. And you probably won't be able to get me to do it out of Lightroom because it's just not the way I do it.
Can I
Brian,
ask a
went-
couple questions?
Sure.
First of all, I was wondering, do you crop before you send it to Photoshop? And then you size in Photoshop?
No. If I'm doing something specifically to go to a printer, I'm going to do my crop and everything in Photoshop.
I'm the same way.
Okay.
So whenever I'm in Lightroom, you know, and I haven't done any cropping or anything like that. This one's obviously cropped, but I haven't done anything like that. I'm just going to go here. I'm going to tell it to edit in Photoshop. I send it over to Photoshop. I crop it. I get it ready for the printer. And then instead of just hitting save and sending it back to Lightroom, I tell it to save as.
Okay. I didn't know. I know this one was cropped. That's why I was double
Yeah.
checking to see if you cropped before or after.
No, if it was for the printer, I would not have cropped it in Lightroom at all. My cropping
Okay.
would be done in Photoshop.
Yeah, I did the same thing that Brian does.
Okay. That
But
was
you
my
put your
first.
border around it if you want, you know, and I like putting that border around. So it makes it better, nicer.
Okay, that was the first question. Now my second question, because I've been sizing my pictures wrong this whole time, is I guess for John, for Fine Art America, how are you sizing and cropping your pictures or saving your pictures, because they will do them at all sorts of sizes?
Yeah, Brian and I had talked about that before too. On the card that I gave out years ago, what I ended up doing, Melissa, is I cropped to a 10.5 by 14. Now, there's a number of reasons why I do that. If you noticed on Fine Art America, if you crop to an 8 by 10 or an 11 by 14, that's the image size. What comes up on the buyer lookout, all the dimensions are in 3 decimal places, which, you know, I thought for a novice buyer, that's going to drive them nuts. So I was looking for something that would give them, you know, a less dimensional space in terms of all those decimal points. And 10.5 by 14 at 300 DPI is what I crop to. Now, there's another reason kind of why I do that is, let's see, I'm trying to think on the large sizes. If you try to go larger than that, you can end up with an image size that they won't accept. I think the highest that they accept is like, Brian, was it like 20 megapixels or 16 megapixels, something like that for an image size?
Yeah, I believe that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I crop to a 10.5 by 14 at 300 DPI, and that's what I upload.
And that makes it to the bigger sized pictures as well, because I think they have like 16 by 20 and bigger.
Oh yeah, they go. I at sending up a 10.5 by 14. I've had people buy 30 by 40s. In other words, they're resampling. Resampling software is really good. And I haven't had any problems with people complaining about the resolution of their final image. So yeah.
And that is in inches, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
10.5 by 14 inches.
Okay. That's what I wanted to check, because I've been exporting size wrong. So I want to make sure I get that set up so that I'm not short and not having a large sale if it would ever to come as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
No, large sales I haven't had problems with. I've had people buy 30 by 40s of classic cars. I thought it was car dealers that were buying them. to put on their walls. No, I haven't had a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Brian, I had a question for you, and I certainly wouldn't try to convince you to change. I'm more curious, when you went through your technique with Photoshop, aside from if you wanted to apply the border, and I see why you would want to use Photoshop for that, but with the exception of the border, I'm not sure I saw you do anything different in Photoshop on the export than you did in Lightroom.
Once you figured out how to do it the right way.
Once we deciphered how to get the exact size picture out of Lightroom, which up until just now, I didn't know how to do that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That's fair enough.
Up until just now, I couldn't do that in Lightroom. So you guys taught me how to do that. And obviously you can do it and get the right size out of Lightroom. That's fine. I will continue to do it the way I do it.
Yeah, I got to admit, I've always tried Lightroom and I really struggled. I had no clue what I was doing until this meeting. And I got to admit, what I saw you do in Photoshop was a lot easier.
It's quick. It's
straightforward,
quick,
really.
Straightforward.
Yeah.
I have no questions as to what it's doing. It's exactly what I tell it to be, and I'm done. So that's the way I've always liked it that way. And one of the other reasons is I did for a long time do all of my own printing at home. So when I was putting stuff in Photoshop, it was because I was printing with different color profiles and stuff like that that matched the ink and my paper and all the stuff here at home. So I got used to printing out of Photoshop because it wasn't so much that I was cropping and sizing in Photoshop as much as that when I hit the print file, I was working with a lot of this stuff here then, as far as what was going to go on when I was printing the picture. So that's a little different because color handling was the printer managed it, and you used different profiles and all kind of stuff when I send it to a printer. That's a little different now because I don't print at home very much. If I'm printing something, I send it to a printer, so I don't worry too much about that. I send it out as a sRGB, and I send it to the printer at the 300 DPI that they asked me to, and they send me a print back, and I send it to Annie to put on a wall somewhere.
But if you were going to print to a printer, you still have to deal with all those issues still. But if you're going to print to a third party, then the issues are different.
Right. Yeah. Now, Dennis, you print to your own printer.
I do, but I use Photoshop because Lightroom I find unpredictable.
Right.
I mean, I don't know where the print's going to end up on the paper, and there's something that I don't know how to do. That in Photoshop I don't have that issue, but I'm doing one print at a time. I don't have any issues exporting out of Lightroom. So if I'm going to send it to White House Custom Color, and I want to send 4x6s, I want to do 100 of them, I can do them all at once, and it works. But I find when I print to the 3880, doing so out of Photoshop gives me much more consistent results.
Right. And like I said, for Lightroom, I've never been able to figure out how to get something to come out of the right size and print the right size and all that. In Photoshop, I have no questions. I know that when I hit save as and I save it, it's done. It's the right way.
Wow.
It's exactly what I expected it to be.
That's interesting. I bought a printer years ago and I've never really used it because I can never get Lightroom to work right. Different pictures and just the same problems you're describing. So I just kind of banned it. I never thought to go into Photoshop.
Yeah. I as far as printing always comes out of Photoshop for me. It just makes so much more sense. And like I said, every time I get, as Dennis said, you get consistent results. You know exactly what's going to happen out of Photoshop.
Jim, I'm sorry, it's 9 o'clock. I got to run. I got something else going on. So we'll catch you guys later.
Question, John, before you run real quick. Did you have any pictures printed at Walmart yet?
The only thing I've been doing, I'm trying to think. The majority of what I've been doing is 4x6s. I did a couple of 12x16s, The only problem is that the people that were trimming the paper on the machine didn't trim the borders right, and I had to go in and have them printed again. But no, I've been just doing 12 by 16s.
You're just doing the 4x6s. So the coloring and everything on your larger print, it looked okay?
Yeah, yes, it did.
Okay.
But I haven't done a lot. And
Yeah.
so I don't want to say I can't really endorse it at this point because I haven't done that many large prints on there.
Okay.
John, do you get them to not color correct?
Walmart doesn't give you that feature. Sam's Club always had when it came up, had an autocorrect link check marked, which you had to turn off. I have looked on the Walmart and they don't even give you that option.
Yeah.
So that's a good point, Dennis.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
All right, John. Thank you. Appreciate
Night.
it.
Thanks,
Tonight,
John.
Thank you.
Gonna run.
Have a good night.
Thanks, John.
Anybody else done the Walmart?
I know Annie did.
Yeah, I know. She said she liked it, but I was wondering, that's one opinion. I was wondering if there's more opinions out there, how well they are. I know she said it was really economical there, but
I've only gotten smaller. I did do an 11 by 14. It was good.
So I haven't printed anything at Walmart in years. When I did print at Walmart before, it was always green. So
Did Angie get printers? She was going to get a printer. Did she get
not
it?
yet.
But that was a print.
all right, guys. Thank you. That was a good discussion tonight.
Yeah.
It was very good.
So,
And
Rex, you're quiet.
yeah, and Brian, one other thing, and I will say this each time I get on to any of the meetings, have you tried your phone out yet?
not really, no. I have shot some stuff of my cars for the website in a later evening when it was starting to get dark, and the pictures are really good for that. So it does a nice job at not using a flash and getting some pictures later in the dark.
Okay, but you haven't tried the Zoom or any of that?
No, I've shot a little bit of the wide angle stuff, just some interior shots that they needed for work.
And?
So I've shot with the wide angle on it, and it's done a nice job with that. But that's just really snapshots, desk and office spaces that they needed photographs of, that they didn't know how to do because they didn't know how to use their camera on their phone. So they go, "Hey, Brian, can you do this?" Yeah, sure, no problem. Here.
So the next time around, I'll ask you again if you have done any landscape and etc.
Well, I'm possibly going to get out a little bit this weekend to do some playing with my trucks in the woods. So maybe I'll get some pictures when I'm out with that.
Sounds good to me. All right.
All right. When is our next get together will be when? Does anybody know?
Yeah, it's next month. The 8th.
Always there's 10,000 comedians out of work, and there's one here trying to.
Next Wednesday.
Is it next Wednesday?
Oh, yeah, for the Zoom.
Okay. All right, guys. Then I guess. What's that?
Should see ya.
Yep. All right. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate all your inputs and comments and questions.
Pictures need to be uploaded by the 8th. Not that I have any, but
What pictures?
scavenger hunt pictures.
Oh,
Not that I have any of them.
Well, and the monthly photo contest in a couple of days.
Oh my goodness, sakes alive.
Yep.
Hey, I've got 3 of the scavenger ones. I got out of focus pictures.
I printed the list out about a week ago.
Yeah, we're doing good. We need another month on that.
It'd still be the same for me. It'd be the end of the month. I'd say I printed the list out about a week ago.
Night, Beth.
Right.
Okay.
All right, guys. Well, hey, it was a nice meeting. Thank
It-
y'all.
And
Uh,
I'll catch y'all later.
I'll upload the recording of this here in a little bit once it gets done processing, and we'll see you guys later.
Okay.
All right.
Night, y'all.
Good night.
Bye.
All right, good
Bye.
night, guys.
Night.
Thank you.